Good morning. Welcome to JS Metal Craft. Well, we're going to attempt to install a heater in the Polaris General, and we'll start out with we got this 9-inch Marine, or I think they listed as a hot rod heater. This is from Jegs, part number 7601. It has two 3-inch outlets, made in China. Almost a month to get. They must be backlogged. A little smaller than what I originally kind of, I guess, had vision, even though I knew it was 9-inch. And that could be a good thing, make it easier to mount under the dash. Along with the heater, we ordered 2 vent kits. The vent kits, of course, includes 2 sections of 3-inch hose, a Y, so there'll be a short piece coming off of here, and then going to 2 of the vents. And here are our vents. They open, close, and adjust. Plus, you're able to turn the top to direct the air wherever you want it. I'm not sure if we're going to be using these brackets yet or not for the lower heaters, but when we get to that point we'll decide. Yeah, we'll keep going. We purchased a valve so we can regulate the heat flow in the summertime, turn it off. We've got a choke cable here. I will have to bend this wire a couple of wraps to fit the pin. And I guess it goes on here like the cable. We'll have it wrapped around there, and as we pull this in and out, well, it'll move the lever. The ones that are already got the pre-bent end here, a lot of them, if any of them I find, didn't have a handle like this, and they were all quite a bit more money, so I just bought a choke cable. You know, we'll have to either live with that or do something else. I don't really care about that. With the heater kit, we've got a I think it's a 3-position switch here for the fan motor. They include 2 aluminum brackets, mounting brackets. And I also purchased a Y. This is barely considered a Y. You know, to me, a lot steeper angle there. This is just barely. I don't even think it's 45 degrees off of there, but. And we from, I think it's Cooper Products, we purchased a MaxiStat thermostat inside there. The hot water will be coming in this direction, and it'll direct it into the heater coil, or heater core, until it reaches, I believe, I want to say it was 180-degree thermostat in there. So it directs all the heat or all the hot water until it reaches that temperature. And we went ahead and purchased these block-off clamps. I'm not even sure how to use them yet. Anyway, they'll clamp off the radiator hoses so we don't leak fluid out when we cut them, to put our thermostat and our Y in there. On the vent kit, we ordered 2 of them, the same. They do sell a defroster kit, but it's a narrow, long piece, and the dash on the General, I didn't feel that it would fit very well because of the contours. I'm hoping these will fit nicer and look a little bit more professional. So with that, heater just arrived here FedEx just a little bit ago, and I was kind of laying things out, got my thermostat in, got the 2 pieces tightened up. We did put some anti-seize on the threads. We put some Teflon pipe dope on here and got our nipple tightened on. So this is ready to go. I've got just went and looked for my hose. I got plenty of hose. So with that, let's get started. Okay, hope it ain't too hard to see here, but what I've done, and it took a little while to just come to the decision here, playing around with different areas down here to get the best fit and to have a way to mount it. And it appears that the original design of this heater was to be mounted well, I don't know if you'd call it vertical or horizontal, or anyway, the mounting brackets kind of only go on there one way, and so that it hangs from the top. It'll fit down in the moldings of the plastic here really nicely, almost like it's made to fit down there. But the problem that I was scared of is the water outlets are going straight down, and I don't know how you'd ever get the air out of there. So what we ended up doing, we took 2 1" by 1/8" or made brackets. I did mill out a 1/4" slot on both ends just to make it go quicker, and everything lined up a lot easier. Hard to measure because we have a bend on this end here. Put that in the press brake, and to get those, just to drill 1 hole and get them both to line up, it was going to be difficult. And I got to, first time I've used these blind nuts or rib nuts, whatever you want to call them. Bought a tool that makes these installing very easily. So we drilled there's 2 of these brackets. So we drilled our 4 holes and put a nut inside there, and then when we made our brackets here, we also put 2 in here. So now the stove or the heater is gonna come in or lift up, come in and slide down and come down. We can bolt it in the 4 places. Okay, now we got our heater slid up in there. Like I say, I turned the brackets both pointing the same way, so it's a matter of sliding it in there, lifting up and then in a little bit more, and holds it there. The other end of the rib nut on this side is touching the heater, is the only downside. And the brackets are extended as far as they go. In other words, the heater is pushed down as far as it'll go. I can still feel a little movement, so I think we're okay there. Definitely makes it easy to slide in and out of there. So we're gonna go measure the where we want to drill for the hoses, and there, right down here where my hand is, and I don't know, 5 or 6 inches from the firewall. So that should be a pretty easy, straightforward way. They're going to come out just to to the right of our vent or air intake system on here. And they're on inside the frame. The hoses will come just to the outside of the frame there, so really convenient. The cold side will just make a gentle curve straight down on top of the radiator hose. So that's no sharp bends, just a nice gentle curve all the way down, and hopefully that'll be good enough. Okay, before we get any further here, I tell you, this is a tight space to work in here, and trying to get this duct line over the vents, quite the challenge. And to figure out exactly how to place everything to get it all to fit, it was a challenge. I think I finally got it figured out. Right now we've got the two floor vents hooked up. This is the left-hand duct out of the heater, and it goes all the way down and then makes a turn back upwards. And so the Y is sitting in here like this, and then the upper two go out to the vents. The only way I could figure out how to get it in there. And so then for the basically we're going to do the same thing for the defrost. We've already got our hose coming up here. We can pull it up, put our vent line on there, and then we'll be able to push this back down a little bit and give us plenty of room to go to each defrost vent. Okay, I wasn't sure how well the video showed how I had these hoses in here, so I drew up a picture, and I wanted to make sure this was relayed as easily as I could, because figuring out the layout of these hoses was the most time-consuming part of this job. I probably well, I spent probably a couple hours trying different things, and well, first was with the heater, exactly where to put it, and but I always had to keep in mind of these hoses. Now remember, these hoses are 3-inch. I think most kits, specific kits, are 2.5 or 2-inch, and that's why I chose this one. A lot more airflow, in my opinion. But anyway, I was having a hard time because these wires were so big. And for example, this bottom one here, if we came down and this was a T, so this hose came down into the top of the T and then each end went straight out, would have made it really simple than trying to find a spot for these Ys. I mean, they're quite large. Well, I went to the hardware store and I couldn't find anything, even making parts or buying material to make something and all that stuff. I just couldn't find anything that I was happy with, so I came home. I knew I had to use these, and luckily everything just kind of fell into place. Maybe I just needed to rest away from it a little bit. But anyway, like I was explaining, this is our left side of the heater. The driver's over here where I got these things written on this paper, and the hose comes out and goes down and up into this Y, and then from the Y we go to our left vent and our right vent. And of course this Y isn't placed exactly where it is under the hood, but just to it was easier to draw it this way. And for the top part, of course, it came out and made a curve up into the bottom of the Y and then to your left and your right defrost. And once you know, like this piece here does sit down, oh, somewhere in this neighborhood. This Y here is, I think this hose might come down just a little bit further. So this Y is clear down here, where the tops of them are just a little bit above the top of the heater. And then above here, keep my little pointer in the, there's plenty of room under the dash. These hoses fit in there no problem. So I just wanted to clear that up. Like I say, if I could save somebody a little bit of time trying to figure that out, if they want to go this route, that's what I figured out and feel that that's the best way to do it. And I know we already went over the parts, but I went and wrote down the part numbers. This is heater 7061 from Jegs. Summit does, or did have, one that appeared to be identical, but when I went and looked, for some reason I don't see it on there. Both Jegs and Summit do have one that looks exactly the same. I might pronounce this wrong, Maridime. It might be a better heater, I'm not sure. I think it was $10 or $20 more, but they picture wise look almost identical. I ordered 2 vent kits, 7606. By the way, this heater was on sale for $145. I think regular $149. The vent kits were $35 a piece. A push-pull cable was $8.50 shipped. The heater control valve, which regulates how much water flow you get through the heater core to adjust your heat. In the summertime, it'll shut it off. It's a 4 Seasons 74827 for $15. I bought these Ys, UPI. Now, if we go with the Maxi Stat, these Ys I would say were optional. I mean, they come in pairs. I don't know if you can just buy them single. Maybe, I'm sure you probably could. I only used one of them. A T I think would have worked just fine for the return. I think that's about it. The cable push-pull worked perfect with this valve. You pull it, it opens up the valve. You push. That was my concern. And this push-pull cable that I got was a choke throttle cable, and so the end was straight. And when I show you this valve, there's a little stud on it, and so in order to use this cable, you have to be able to make some curls in the end of it to fit the stud on the valve, which was really easy to do. Okay, here's the heater looking up underneath the dash. We can see our 2 hoses going through the grommet and our push-pull cable. And yeah, I drilled a hole in grommet for the push cable. Decided to mount it up against the, I guess you'd call that the firewall, and it was too close to make the bend from the hole that I drilled, and so I had to cut a notch where our grommet goes through and run the cable through there. And we can see one of our floor vents here, and about it. It's all definitely tucked way up under there, out of the way. I mean, From here you can just barely see. Here's our defroster vents with the windshield installed. Of course your windshield's going to be different than mine, but they kind of set up underneath this piece of angle iron here. But you can feel the warm air clear across there. And here are my controls. Come on, focus in there. I got them a little bit closer than what I wanted. Yeah, I took that little cubby out of there, made a piece of aluminum, and drilled and tapped the holes into the plastic to mount the radio. And I think originally they mount the heaters over there, but as you can see, I got some custom holders over there, so decided just to put it in here. And when you want heat, we can just pull out our little choke thing. Yeah, it's got a choke picture on there. And then of course our 3-speed fan. And I suppose you can hear that pretty well. I don't know how to give an idea about how much air that thing pumps out, but believe me, that's better than most cars that I've ever seen. Okay, here's our shutoff valve, and like I say, I got it up here pretty close to the firewall, and so you can see what, the cable, whatever 3-4 fingers are above. I put that way up too high, and it wasn't going to bend down to there, but it's in the off position now, and that's wide open. And then we came down, and yeah, right here we have our Y, and it hose so it's kind of shooting towards the back because that's the flow of the coolant. And over here we have our maxi stat, and we can see the line coming off of here to go to our heater core. So this is the hot water coolant coming from the engine, and there's a thermostat in here, and this outlet is before the thermostat. So as the water comes from the engine, keep saying water, the coolant comes from the engine, it's forced into the heater hose until I forget what this is, like 180 degree thermostat in here, and so it helps warm it up really fast, or faster than it would otherwise. You'd be having to heat the water in the radiator at the same time. So this morning the temperature gauge on the dash, when I started, it said 27 degrees, and it was approximately 7 or 8 minutes before I could I was feeling some heat here, and I put a temperature or a thermometer in the dash up there, and it went from it rose 30 degrees. So actually I thought that was fairly rapid. once the I let everything heat up to the fan cycled one time, and stuck the thermometer in the duct at an idle. We was hovering around 95 to 100 degrees. If I rev it up to 4,000 or 5,000 RPM, the temperature out of the ducts rose to 125 plus. That's as high as my thermometer went. It went all the way up to the last mark on it. And so I think way more heat than what a person's ever going to need. Okay, when you do have to cut these coolant lines. You can either drain all the fluid out, or what I did was I purchased these hose pliers. Anyway, stick it over the hose and slide this keeper, whatever you want to call it, back to the end, and it keeps the hose squeezed together. Not 100%, but it just a real slow drip. And on this one here, I just cut the hose and stuck that in there. I didn't shorten the hose in any way. There's lots of room for that to hang down just the 2 inches, not rubbing on anything. Now on this side, when I cut this hose, of course we used our little pliers to clamp the hose off here so we didn't lose all the fluid out of the radiator, and cut the hose. Have a nice sharp pair of scissors, and I took 1 inch out of it, and then installed our Y connector in there. And finally, it's recommended that the radiator be the highest point in the whole system to get all the air bled out. And I didn't have any trouble that I'm aware of yet, but what I did was we hooked the gantry here to the front bumper and raised it up quite a bit so the radiator was higher than the heater core, because that heater core is higher than the radiator as it sits now. And before I hooked up the return line, I left it unconnected and raised it up until I started to get a little bit of flow out of it. It was just dripping a little bit, and we put it on the Y down there, tightened it up, filled the radiator up, and let's see, I mixed up 2 quarts of antifreeze, and I've got probably 10 or 12 ounces left. So really didn't I didn't lose much, and you know, I don't know what that core probably took a quart by itself. So anyway, I lost less than a quart doing the whole thing. No leaks that I can find. Went through, double checked all of the clamps, cleaned everything off, went back through again after it sat overnight, and everything is nice and dry. So guess if there's ever any questions, I can do what I can do to help. Just ask. If you're a little bit of adventuresome, want to save a few bucks, this is the way to go. we're hoping to go riding here in the next day or two. So I'll have some time on it to see how well it works. I'm not worried about it. Maybe do a follow-up. You know, it's kind of intimidating, but you know, I'm hoping for the information that I gave here. You know, I think, trying to guess how long it would take to do all of this, but I'm going to throw a 6-hour job out there just to give you a close estimate. Because like I say, a lot of this I had to figure out on my own because there's no instructions. And anyway, if you're the type that needs all the instructions and want something that's already been designed all in a box and that sort of thing, I would suggest that's the way to go. But if you got the tools and want to source all these parts and have the mechanical ability, I would suggest to give it a try. Well, thanks for watching, and sorry this ended up being such a long video.